The night was cold enough to bite through the thickest coat, and the wind howled like a wounded animal across the empty highway. In the middle of nowhere, a flickering neon sign struggled to stay alive against the storm. Marty's Diner. Open 24 hours. Inside, the warmth of the small diner was kept alive by the hiss of the coffee machine, the hum of an old jukebox, and the tired sighs of its owner, Marty Wells. Marty was in his late 40s, his once broad shoulders now slightly hunched from years of hard work. His hands, rough and scarred from kitchen burns, held a quiet strength, but his eyes told a story of struggle. It was another slow night. Bills were stacked behind the counter, the coffee was running low, and the heater had started making strange noises again. He had no idea how he'd pay for repairs this time. Then came the sound that would change everything. The sputtering roar of a motorcycle engine fighting against the wind before dying just outside. A moment later, the diner door creaked open, letting in a gust of snow, and a man who looked like he'd been through a storm far longer than tonight's. Before we dive deeper into this unforgettable night, if you believe that kindness still exists in this world, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Everyday Heroes. Your support helps us share real stories that remind us what being human truly means. The man who stepped in was tall, maybe in his early 30s, wearing a torn leather jacket coated in frost. His face was pale, lips trembling, and his eyes, deep gray, carried exhaustion, defeat, and hunger all at once. His bike helmet dangled from one hand, and his other hand was shoved deep into his pocket, as if searching for something that wasn't there. Marty glanced up, concern immediately softening the lines on his face. "Rough night, huh?" he said, walking over with a towel. "Come on in, get warm before you turn into an icicle." The man nodded weakly, rubbing his hands together over the heater. Marty poured a cup of steaming coffee and placed it in front of him. "On the house?" he said simply. The man hesitated. I don't have any money," he murmured, ashamed. "Didn't ask for any. Drink up before it gets cold." The man's eyes glistened for a moment, but he said nothing. Marty went back to the kitchen, pretending not to notice. A few minutes later, he returned with a plate, eggs, hash browns, and 2 pancakes stacked with syrup. "Eat," he said. "You look like you haven't had a real meal in days." The man stared at the food, then at Marty. "Why are you doing this?" Marty smiled faintly. "Because someone once did the same for me." The stranger ate in silence, his hands trembling as if each bite was a fight against pride and desperation. The storm outside grew stronger, rattling the windows, and Marty told him he could stay until it passed. Hours later, the man finally spoke. "Name's Jake," he said quietly. "Used to be a mechanic, lost the shop when the economy tanked. Been trying to find work, but guess luck's not on my side." Marty nodded. "Luck's overrated. Try faith, and maybe a hot breakfast now and then." When morning came, the storm had eased. Jake thanked him, promising to pay him back someday. Marty chuckled. "You just focus on getting back on your feet. That's payment enough." Jake smiled, a small, grateful smile, then rode off into the misty dawn. Marty watched until the sound of the motorcycle faded away. He didn't know it then, but that moment, that simple act of kindness, would soon rewrite his life completely. Weeks passed. Business got slower. Marty barely scraped enough to keep the lights on. One afternoon, he found a foreclosure notice nailed to his door. The diner, his father's old dream, his life's work, was about to be taken away. He sat at the counter late that night, staring at the notice, feeling the crushing weight of failure. It was then that a black car pulled up outside. 2 men in suits stepped in, followed by a third, a man Marty instantly recognized. Jake, but this time he looked different. Clean-shaven, confident, and wearing a tailored coat instead of that torn leather jacket. "Marty," Jake said, his voice carrying a warmth that filled the room. "I told you I'd pay you back." Marty blinked, stunned. "Jake, what's going on?" Jake smiled. "Turns out my bad luck ran out. After that night, I hitched south. Got a temporary job fixing engines again. One thing led to another, and a startup needed someone who could design efficient motorcycle engines. Long story short, I became a partner. We just closed a major deal." He paused, his eyes softening. "But I never forgot that night or you." Jake turned to one of the suited men. "He's the guy I told you about." Before Marty could ask more, Jake handed him a folder. Inside were legal documents, a partnership offer and a cashier's check large enough to pay off every debt, and then some. "I want to invest in Marty's Diner," Jake said. "Not to change it, but to expand it, to turn it into a franchise that helps feed people like I once was, broke, lost, and hungry. You gave me hope when I had none. I want to do the same for others." Marty's hands trembled as he looked up at him. Jake, I can't accept this. You don't owe me anything? Jake smiled gently. You're wrong. You gave me more than a meal. You gave me dignity when I had nothing left. Let me return the favor. Tears filled Marty's eyes as the realization sank in. His small act of kindness had come full circle. The following months were nothing short of a miracle. Marty's diner was renovated, the flickering neon replaced with a bright, new sign. The menu stayed simple, the coffee still strong, and the pancakes just as sweet. But now, there was something extra, a small sign near the register that read, "If you're hungry and broke, your meal is on us." Jake became a frequent visitor, often stopping by with his team. Together, they launched a foundation that supported struggling workers and small businesses. Soon, Marty's story spread across the internet. A simple diner owner whose kindness changed not just one man's life, but countless others. And every night, when the last customer left and the lights dimmed, Marty would stand by the window watching the highway. He no longer feared the empty road or the storm, because he knew, sometimes, the most unexpected people find their way into your life, right when you need them most. If you felt the power of kindness in this story, don't forget to hit like, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Everyday Heroes. Your support helps us tell stories that prove small acts can create extraordinary change. One winter evening, a young traveler stopped at Marty's diner again. Cold, broke, and lost. And Marty welcomed him in with a warm smile and a hot cup of coffee, just as he always did. Because Marty now understood something timeless. Kindness isn't an act to be repaid. It's a seed that keeps growing, long after the storm has passed.